What's going on, fellas? I've got a 2008 Hyundai Sonata here, and I'm going to use this car to go over the starting circuit. I'm going to point out to you some important fuses and relays for the operation of the starter. So let's go ahead and start under the hood. Of course, it all begins at the battery. You'll want to make sure that your connections to the battery are tight and clean, and you'll want to test the battery to make sure it's in good condition. Now, the power coming off of the battery enters the starting circuit at a green 40 amp J-case fuse located right here. So this is called the ignition fuse, and it carries power from the battery to both the starter relay as well as the ignition switch. These J-case fuses, you can look down and see if they're intact. All of these are good. And you remove the fuse by just grabbing it and pulling it upward. You'll note the plastic top cover broke off of this one and the one next to it. These covers often break off when you attempt to remove it. No big deal. Cover's not really super necessary unless, of course, you're in a corrosive environment. So yeah, the starter relay is right here. It needs power from both this ignition fuse as well as the ignition switch in order to energize. And when it does energize, it connects these two pins together, sending power from this fuse to the starter. With this relay removed, you can actually jumper these two pins yourself. Doing this will cause the starter to turn over. Assuming the starter is working, the engine is not locked up, and the battery and wiring is good. This can be a safety issue. Make sure that the car is in park and that nobody's hands are anywhere near the engine when you do this. This is just a troubleshooting step. Some more troubleshooting steps you can do. You can have someone hold the key in the start position while you tap on the relay. Sometimes relays can get stuck, and tapping on the relay can unstick it. And you can also swap the relays. The relay right next to it is the headlight low beam relay. You can put that in its place, and if after making the switch, the car starts but your low beam headlights stop working, then you know the problem is the relay. Now let's head inside the car. I'll point out to you a starter fuse inside here. So I mentioned that green 40 amp J-case fuse that provides power to the ignition switch there. Well, when that switch is turned to the start position, it takes that power and it energizes another fuse known as the starter fuse. So that's the fuse right here in the lower right hand corner. And what you can do with this is, using the exposed metal on the fuse, you can check to see if there's power there when the key is turned to the start position. You can also apply your own power there to bypass the ignition switch. As far as removing this fuse, you just grab it with some needle nose and pull it straight out. And this, of course, is what a good fuse looks like. Now the power for the starter will go through this fuse into a relay called the burglar relay. This relay is only used when the car has an alarm system that's going off. It prevents the car from starting. And the relay very rarely fails. The relay is found inside of the fuse box, or the relay box here, which is kind of broken, busted on this one. And it is relay number 6. Pretty much this is the last thing I would think to check. And you would only need to check that if you are seeing power at that fuse, but you are not seeing that power make it to your neutral safety switch. So here's the neutral safety switch right down in there. The role of this is to keep the car from starting if it is not in park or neutral. The power goes through that burglar relay, and then it goes into the switch on pin number 10, which is that upper right hand pin with the gray wire. When this switch is working properly and when it is in park or neutral, the neutral safety switch will connect this pin with the pin next to it, pins 10 and 9. And pin number 9 will go directly to your starter relay, and it carries power to it to energize it. Now you can bypass temporarily the neutral safety switch by connecting these two pins together. This will result in the car starting at any time, regardless of what gear it's in. So it will start the engine even if you have it in drive. So for that reason, it's not really recommended as a permanent fix. It's more of a troubleshooting step. So yeah, and as far as the starter itself, it is located underneath the intake manifold there. So yeah, I hope all this information was helpful for you. Please be sure to let me know if you have any questions, or more importantly, let me know if you have any advice for troubleshooting the starter on your Hyundai Sonata.